Hey, what's going on, Jason? Good to connect with you.
Yeah, same for you. That's a nice background. Damn.
Yeah, all this stuff used to be in my attic in a box, and I was like, man, I got to do something with this. So I'm in my basement right now in my work area. Just usually there's actually a table right in front of here, and then
Mhm.
a big white vinyl backdrop. So that's where I take all my pictures for all the inventory. And I just
Gotcha.
as my makeshift podcast background for now. So,
Very nice. That looks good.
well, thank you, man. Um,
Yeah.
you got a nice little background there. Is that some Honda shout out?
Yeah, a little bit of RC stuff going on from back in the day.
There you go. And to dive right into it, you're racing the Honda, and nobody else is racing the Honda. So what's that like?
uh, well, the last few years it's been pretty interesting. We've been working a lot with Honda directly, trying to improve the bike and then try and get it to a point where we can be really competitive. And we put a lot of work, a lot of time into it. And I think last year we got our current package to probably as good as it's going to get unless we make a major change. Hopefully next year or hopefully sooner than that, we'll be able to get our hands on the new bike and go from there.
Think a new generation is going to come out soon, and we'll be able a new platform and all that.
Ah, I've ridden the new bike. It's a very nice bike. It's a lot of fun to ride. I think it has a lot of potential. The biggest thing is that there's only so many in the U.S. right now. So it's going to take some time to get more units just to the states that we can actually use for racing. Because right now, they're all to customers, which is understandable.
Right.
But when you only have 100 in the whole country, you can't really do a whole lot.
Yeah. Very limited supply, that's for sure. And you
Yeah.
rode a bunch of bikes in your past. You started on the 50 when you were probably before you rode a bicycle. I know that
Oh
you
yeah.
did the BSB. You were in CEV Moto 2, so you're riding a Calyx then. And what is the Calyx chassis different? How does the Calyx chassis compare to the Honda chassis? Is that just a different world? You going from prototype to stock production?
I think the chassis themselves are fairly similar. I think the biggest difference between like the Calyx, I rode the 600. So before I went to Triumph and all that stuff, I was on the Honda 600 engine and the Calyx chassis. I rode both Speed Up and Calyx, but anyway, yeah, the biggest difference is probably just the feel. Like the CBR 600 chassis, the normal chassis gives you a lot of good feel, but there's a lot of movement. Like the chassis flexes a lot, which is fine. It's just a different type of mindset and how to ride it. And then you get on the Moto 2, and especially the 2016 Calyx I rode was super rigid, which was great for high speed, lean angle stuff. But if you made one mistake, it would punish you right then.
Yeah,
So
very
you had to be
unforgiving.
really, yeah, you had to be really on top of it. But like I said, it made a really good platform to learn off of. I wish looking back, I could have taken more advantage of it just because the way I ride now is different than the way I rode then.
Right,
But,
right.
I learned a lot and thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and you've had some pretty cool teammates in the past. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but Joe Roberts sticks out as one of your teammates, I think, from the past, and maybe
Oh,
CEV.
yeah.
And
hmm
do you guys still stay in contact at all?
We do every now and then. We actually, for a short while in 2017, I lived in LA and we lived fairly close to each other. So we'd hang out all the time and we had the same manager. So we'd go training together all the time. So we got pretty close. And then obviously we were teammates, so we'd race. And that was good. I got a good opportunity. I learned a lot. And I think we had a little bit different outlook on how to ride the bike. So we always set things up a bit different. But overall, I'm thankful for the opportunity, learned a lot. And yeah, it's actually good to see him doing really well. So
Yeah,
looking
it's
forward.
amazing to see a potential. I know he didn't get the Aprilia ride, but a potential MotoGP seat offer was on the table. That's craziness. Um, it's not so far away, really. It seems like it is.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. I think it was a good decision. Obviously I don't know anything in the background. I can't really say a whole lot, but just looking from the outside, it would be rough to jump into a MotoGP bike without having any experience, not having a lot of 1000cc time. Like that would be a big ask. So,
Yeah, it's a lot for anybody, even if you've been on the 1000cc for 10 years to jump up to
yeah.
the premier class of the world. It's cutthroat,
Oh yeah.
very cutthroat. And so you rode some pretty cool tracks in Spain and France. I think you did Portugal, Portimao. Um, what tracks do you excel at? Are there certain tracks that are more flowy or more stop and go? What's your best track that you think if you could pick any track to race somebody at, what would it be?
I think the two tracks that I seem to excel at would be Aragon and a smaller track in France called Lebanon. They're both very similar as far as a layout. Obviously, Aragon is super long. Like the track is almost 5 kilometers a lap, so it's a long lap time. But as far as just a layout, like constant elevation change, off camera, on camera corners, that's the kind of stuff I like. I think it's challenging and it usually levels the playing field a little bit. Let it on, especially again, small track in France. But the nice thing about that place is there were no long straights.
Okay.
And at the time, I was riding for Honda France on their CBR 600 in the Super Stock 600 class, which was a good package. But in the long straightaways, we suffered. We just didn't have the engine to keep up with some of our sixes and the Kawasaki's. But that track in particular, since there were really no straights, it was just all, up, down, corner, left, right. So that was good for us, and that's where we actually got our first win, and that's where we kind of started our championship push. So a lot of good memories, stuff like that. I think the tracks that stand out as difficult would definitely be Portimao. That track was insane, dude.
Yeah, that's wild. It's like a roller coaster.
Oh, dude, it's a great track. It's a lot of fun, but there's so many blind corners. Like trying to learn the track is probably the hardest part, just because there are no references. So you're kind of like, you're flying blind and just hoping that you don't go flying off this corner. Actually, I don't know if you were able to watch the last MotoGP race from there, but that last right-hander where you start at the top of the hill and you drop way down and then you go on the front straight. During my second race there in CEV, I was dropping down that hill, and just as I went to, because you would grab fourth, fifth, and sixth mid-corner, just full throttle on the 100. And just as I went to grab sixth gear, it popped into a false neutral and then hooked and spat me off and high-sided me at like the hardest part.
Oh no!
Dude, it was looking like tumbled forever. But no, that's a fun track. Definitely hard to learn, but good time.
Yeah, and the front straightaway is like a big plateau, right? You come up onto it and then you just drop right back down for turn one.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, very unique. And I was watching, I think it was Moto 2. There was a rider who crashed during one of the downhill sections, and he was like, looking back at the track immediately, because although there's yellow flags, that doesn't mean the rider's going to be slowing down, not necessarily.
Oh, for sure.
It's just like keep aware of what's going on. So it's almost like there needs to be a blind corner flag.
Yeah. Like there's something on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, because there really isn't something, but it's that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Someone crashes on the other side of a corner, you can't see it, but that's what the flag's there for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody's trying their best. The flaggers are trying to warn people, but like you were saying, sometimes there's so many possibilities on where that crash could be that you're just kind of hoping that it's not right there. And for Navarro, it was right there.
Yeah. Well, everybody they got out of it safely then. So you're living in Napa Valley, California right now?
Correct. Yeah, I call Napa Valley my home. And recently it's been on fire a lot, but still here. So thankful.
Born and raised?
Actually born and raised in Washington State. And then my family moved down here when I was young, and I've been here ever since.
Very good. And I saw you were on the Shiny Side Up podcast with Eric Lowe talking about some firefighting the other day.
Oh yeah, no, that was a good time. It was funny.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I went on his and he came on mine, did a little podcast back and forth. So it's a small world,
Yeah, I liked his drill story. That was funny.
Yeah. And so what's on your mind today? Is there anything you want to talk about, bring up to the world of podcasters?
Geez, I think right now it's just about trying to stay fit. I mean, I just had surgery on Monday on both my arms, so trying to get my body back to where we were before and get all the flexion and strength back and stuff like that. But mostly it's just been trying to plan for 2021, trying to get everything ready. There's not a whole lot I can say right now, but it's just a lot of stuff up in the air. I'm still waiting on a written contract, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen next year, but I have a good plan. It's just hoping that plan comes together.
Sure. There's a lot of moving pieces putting a whole effort, a championship effort together.
Oh, yeah.
And living in California. What's it like over there? It's just raining and 40 degrees in Michigan right now.
Honestly, it's not that different. Right now, it's raining and probably somewhere around like 45, 50.
Yeah. I always think of
Yeah.
California as like the best weather of the country, but that's not always the case if you're in Northern California.
Yeah, it's not always the case. We have had it's been kind of creepy because our fire season is still like going because it's still 75 degrees during the day, and this is the first rainfall we've had in like 2 months. So it's been kind of weird, but I'm thankful to see the rain today finally, and hopefully we'll get more of it. So.
Yeah. And so all these forest fires, we can jump into that a little bit. I was talking to somebody about why California in particular is one of the worst places for these forest fires. Obviously, it's the dry area, it's the lack of rain, but also it's they don't cut their forests with I don't know what you call those channels where there's no trees. So
Yeah, fireworks. Yeah, that's kind of been the constant battle we've had, especially like the last 10 years or so. Just trying to be able to satisfy everybody involved because, if we went out there and we just like clear cut 10,000 miles of trees, a lot of people would freak out. I understand why. Um, but it's a double-edged sword because, obviously we want to save the forest. We want to make sure everything looks good for everybody. Um, but as you've been seeing and as everybody's been seeing, it all burns because there's nothing to stop it. It just plows
Yeah.
right through. So trying to find that balance where, okay, we're going to do some cutting here, we're going to do some cutting there and control our fuels. Just trying to make sure everybody's happy. And that's really all we can do. It's been rough. California
Yeah.
is one of those states where there's a lot of places that we can't reach just because there's so much elevation, mountain ranges. You have the ocean on one side, and you have just a bunch of natural terrain that we can't do anything about. That we try, but some of these fires are starting in places that we can't access, like the lightning complex fire started in August, I think. Yeah, I think it
Months
was
ago.
August. Yeah, a few months ago, but man, that started literally like 30 miles into a forest that
Oh yeah.
nobody can access. And that's why it just exploded so fast. But stuff like that, we're trying our best, but there's only so much we can do.
And some of these fires, they say that forest burning can be a natural thing, that it replenishes the soil and all that, but it's not natural if it's caused by a heating and cooling company, right? Or whatever the speculation is. Not
Yeah. Yeah, and everything kind of has pros and cons. Trying to make sure that yeah, it is like it's natural. The Indians used to light shit on fire all the time and have everything regrow, and there are a lot of benefits to it. The downside is loss of life, loss of property, loss of money.
yeah,
So like I said, everything has pros and cons, but we work with what we got.
sure. And jumping around a little bit, but you mentioned the background. Do you have a background like this somewhere, or a room probably now dedicated to all your awards and things?
I do. Unfortunately, it's not in this house, but I can go there later if you want.
Sure. I was just curious what it looks like, or what you got in your room of trophy awards.
Yeah, it's all like leather suits. I think I have like 15 suits or so just from like when I first started road racing all the way up until when I rode with Factory Honda and Moto America. Then I have right now I'm rebuilding my dirt bike. So I have my 450 engine in a million pieces. And then it's just this shelf where it has trophies and stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
And so your surgery that you just had, is that for arm pump to get rid of that? And
Yeah. Yeah. It was really just on the right arm that I needed it. But I was talking to my doctor, the same guy that did my finger, same guy that did my hip, all my elbow stuff. Same doctor I've had for pretty much all my injuries. He's a really good dude. And he's like, well, shoot, if you're doing one, you might as well do both because you're only going to be out for like 2-3 weeks max. And
it's
you
not
can start
bad.
training fairly soon. Yeah, it's not bad at all. And it all like all the timing and stuff kind of worked out pretty good because I'm actually I'm in my schooling session right now, which means it's all online because everything going on. So I'm literally just sitting on a computer all day. And I was like, shoot, if I'm going to be sitting on a computer, I might as well, be healing.
Yeah.
So it actually worked out pretty well.
So the idea is to relieve some pressure in your forearms from the muscles being too big that they can't get the blood flow. It should help the issue so you don't get numb hands on the bike.
Correct. Yeah, and it's pretty much the way I explain it. And there's a lot more scientific ways to go about it, but it's pretty much like a fishnet that's wrapped around your forearm muscle. And all they do is they go in and they kind of cut that fishnet to where it opens up and, like you said, relieves that pressure and just better blood flow, lets your hands get feeling again. And I haven't been able to ride since then because I just got it done last Monday. But I'm really excited. I'm finally getting my arms to like open and close all the way again. But I really want to get on my motocross bike and see the difference.
Yeah, it seems strange to have surgery when you didn't have a crash, right? You didn't actually get injured from falling down. It was just from riding on the bike.
Yeah, this was more of like a preventative maintenance thing, just on myself. It's been a problem for the last few years. I've been trying a bunch of different stuff to help with it, as far as diet, training, different stuff, and it's gotten to the point where even on my race suit, my leathers, I can't zip up my wrists just because if I have like any pressure right here, it just totally locks up my hands.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, this isn't good. So I finally got it done, and I'm excited to see the difference.
Yeah, and some people always say, "Oh, well, you're riding the bike wrong." Well, you've been riding since you were 4 years old, so I'm sure that's not the case.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be a better way to do something. I'm riding the way that I know how, the way I've been taught, and the way I've kind of figured out works for me. Um, Again, everybody's different. The stuff that I do on the bike ends up putting a lot of pressure on my lower back and my forearms and my triceps, which unfortunately my left triceps pretty messed up. But yeah, so I would get arm pump fairly quick as far as I'm concerned, quicker than I want. And yeah, that was the biggest contributing factor to all this stuff.
Well, you got some cool scars to tell, right?
Oh yeah, good stories, all good stories.
Yeah. And do you have a message to the world? Drop a bombshell for you. What's your message to the world if you had one?
Ooh, message to the world. I guess I would have one for racing and one for the fire stuff. As far as racing is concerned, there's always going to be somebody out there telling you that you're doing something wrong. There's always going to be somebody that has that magic ticket as far as like, oh, I could save you 10 seconds on your lap time. I could go make you like world championship racer. There's always going to be those people. And I think it's important to take what you can from everybody who's willing to work with you. As far as, I don't think there was one right path. I did think that for a long time, and that was a big mistake. That hindered me a lot. So taking what you can from different people and find what works for you personally as a rider and as an individual is a big deal. So just yeah, don't hyper focus on one thing. Try and take in the big picture.
Yeah.
And as far as the firefighting side, if your smoke alarm goes off, get out.
Yeah.
We see so many people, and they all are like, okay, my smoke alarm's going off, not a big deal. Like it'll silence itself in a bit. But smoke alarms go off for a reason, and we've done a lot of research and stuff, especially in Napa County. Usually have about 30 to 35 seconds from when the smoke alarm goes off to when a room is fully engulfed in flame.
Wow,
So,
that quickly?
Yeah, it happens fast, especially in newer buildings. So yeah, if your smoke alarm's going off, try and figure it out. And if it's in your room, you need to get it out of there.
Yeah, the only time my smoke alarm ever goes off is when someone's cooking, but
Yeah, same.
but it hasn't been too bad lately. I have been trying to get a lot more groceries lately. I just went to Costco and got a whole bunch of stuff, a truckload of stuff, and went to Meijer, also got another couple of bags. And I've been just trying not to eat out as much, trying to cook my own food, meal prep more, put everything into little containers, try to plan out your meals for the week. Do you do any of that kind of stuff? Are you a meal prepper, or are you just kind of willy-nilly, whatever?
I do a lot of meal planning, meal prepping stuff. My brother is huge into that. He'll like prep for an entire week and then some. I can't do a week's worth of food. I can do like 2 or 3 days at a time, and then I either get bored or I just don't want to eat the same thing all the time. So I'll usually do like 2-3 day blocks, and then change it up, try something else, change it up, try something else. But usually I end up just like rotating through the same 3 meals because that's what I know how to cook. And I like to tell people that I'm really good at cooking the same 3 things, and I just stick to those. But I try my best with what I have, and like you were saying, going out and taking the time to get really what you want and what your body needs is a big deal. And sometimes I overlook that, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Yeah, it's really hard to meet people during a pandemic. So I've been on Tinder and I got this girl's number and we were supposed to have a date today going to lunch and she canceled on me last second. So I was like, I want to get some bacon, some eggs, some sausage, maybe some pancakes. I was like, why would I go to the store and pay, $10, $15 plus, with tip and everything for a meal if I could just go to the store and buy all those ingredients and make it myself?
There you go, pros and cons.
That's what I did.
Well, I'm sorry about that, man. That sucks.
Hey, that's how it goes. You can't get too down on it. It's just on to the next. She wasn't the right one. She didn't work out. She canceled. That's her loss.
Fair enough.
So, so yeah, you just got to.
So where do you run? I see all those Wira plaques. Where do you normally race at?
Yeah, so I began racing in 2011 with Wera in Michigan. I'm from Michigan, so North Central region. And I raced from 2011 to 2015. I stopped racing motorcycles just because it was so expensive. I did have 20 sponsors, but most of them were paying, discounts or free product and things like that, which definitely helps, but it doesn't always pay all the bills. So I think I have 50 podiums to my name between motorcycle road racing, kart racing, and mountain bikes. So,
nice.
I have some history in racing myself. I really can't get back into it. But right now, my business, EricSwannRacing.com, is what I'm working on now to try to help fund all my racing endeavors in the future. So I'm selling online like exhaust and hard parts, motorcycle gear, car parts, mountain bike stuff. I have over 2,000 items for sale on eBay right now, and my own website. So just trying to do that eventually at a full-time level, but I still work a normal job, trying to pay the bills. And I'm actually thinking of buying a house soon. So maybe when I do that, I'll have some bedrooms I can rent out and make some more money that way. That's kind of the idea. So maybe in a month or so, I'll pull the trigger on that one.
There you go. Good for you, man. That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to make as much money as possible so I can go back racing motorsports, because it feels like you're trying to fund a NASA experiment.
Yeah, it'll get you sometimes, but the biggest thing I've learned as far as looking for sponsorship stuff like that is thinking outside the box, trying to not go after the same. So like for me, I have worked with Motul for a long time. Motul Oils, they've been a long time sponsor of mine. And it went from the point as far as like, I was getting paid to use their products. And then it started going down to as far as, now I'm getting a free product. And now I'm getting 75% off, which is kind of reverse the way I would like it to be. Sure. you kind of work with what you got, and you, as I'm sure you've experienced, you're thankful for everything you get, and you try your best to make sure you offer something in return, and just trying to think outside the box and trying to find ways to make sure that people keep coming back to you is a big deal.
Yeah, and what's exciting for me when I do get back into racing, not if, but when, is now that I have a podcast and a platform that I can help talk about products and talk with people and help promote their sponsors and their products. Now I have a business that's actually selling products that I can sell their products as well as just advertise them, that most racers do. There's very, very few racers who actually own a business that sell those sponsors' products.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a new avenue for me in the next couple of years at least.
That's awesome, man. Good for you.
So yeah, it's getting better. I have a couple of exhaust brands, M4, Spark Italian exhaust, Akrapovic. I got Jim O'Neill, OGO Power Sports as vendors that I'm selling. There's a bunch of them off the top of my head. I probably can't even list them all. I'm just thinking of car parts right now. Some Silver Suspension North America. There's Angry Acorns, who has Subaru wide body kits.
Nice.
It's kind of all over the place. It's pretty cool. I like it.
You got any stuff for Fords?
I probably do, but they're not listed yet. I have wheel spacers. I have Cosmis Racing, Cosmis, COSMIS, Cosmis Racing wheels. We have Carvin exhausts, so I'm sure some of those will fit some Fords.
Oh yeah.
BC racing, coilovers. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can't wait to get back into motorcycle racing. But also, I've never really raced cars. I did one autocross event with an Audi with cones, and I got third place, and that was a lot of fun. But it's a lot more expensive to race a car than it is a motorcycle. All in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a good time though. I see a lot of people because I work for a couple different racetracks, so we do a lot of car stuff, and it like you were saying, it takes a lot of money, takes big money, but it's a good community, especially when you're at more the just like going out there, driving, having a fun, amateur racing experience. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I think anything when you get up to the pro level starts getting pretty cutthroat, but it's a
sure.
good time and it's something that a lot of people can relate to. As far as not a lot of people can go, rip a motorcycle around a track, but a lot of people can hop in a car and drive.
Yeah.
So
Maybe more relatable, maybe easier to get fans at the track, maybe get viewers, but I like motorcycle racing more. You can see what's happening better. Like you can see the rider and how he's affecting the machine in a much better or different way than you can see how a car is, the driver is affecting the car. In a car, you only have the steering, the brake, the turn, maybe a clutch. There's very few controls. On a motorcycle, it's a lot of weight transfer, and it's just really more pleasing, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, one of the terms I say a lot is you can usually, a good motorcycle rider can get into a car and be a good car driver pretty much right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to have it the other way around. As far as a car driver doesn't usually get on a bike and do good right off the bat, usually takes some time.
Yeah. Well, I think the car is safer and more. A motorcycle is more dangerous. So the car driver is like, well, I don't want to do that, and we're like, this is easier. We're not going to crash. You got 4 tires. You can't really flip it very easily.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Like you were saying earlier, as far as the rider has to do a little bit more as far as weight transfer, stuff like that, it's a bit harder, at least from what I've seen on the outside. It's harder for people who have driven cars all their life to hop onto a bike and kind of understand how that works because it's just a variable that they've never had to deal with. And getting into a car off of a bike, it's kind of the reverse as far as you were looking for something else to do. Like this was my experience when I first got in a faster car. Is like, man, like this is too easy. I don't know what to do with my body. Like what's going on? But honestly, dude, when I get in cars and I start driving fast on a track, it scares me. Like I get way more scared driving a car than I do on a bike.
Well, there's a lot less room for passing, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is like if I lose the brakes in a car and I'm going towards a wall, I can't just jump out. Like you're in it.
Right.
For better or worse, you're in it. And that's what freaks me out.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to. I mean, there's not very many water hazards, but there are some lakes that you could end up in, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Escape
Oh man.
out the moonroof.
You could try. Yeah, you could try. That'd be exciting.
Ejectocito.
Ejectocito, cuz.
And
Wow, I haven't heard that.
yeah, that's from Fast and the Furious, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I think so, yeah. And so you talked about a little about your dirt bike riding. You do that just for training, or you ever do any racing for that as well?
When I was young, that's what I grew up doing. I raced motocross from pretty much when I could walk up until I turned about 11. And then started seeing a lot of my friends get hurt, and not just like broken arms, but like paralyzed for life hurt. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And kind of got into road racing from there, and that's when everything took off. But I still ride motocross. I ride as often as I can during the season. During the road racing season, I try and stay off of it just for fear of injury. But during the off season, literally, I think after Laguna, the last race this year in October, the next weekend I was on my motorbike, and I've been on my motocross bike as often as I can since then up until my surgery. So I love to do it. I definitely would not want to. I don't have any interest in racing it again, just because I don't want to have that pressure. Like the pressure I feel from road racing is way different than the pressure I feel from motocross. And I don't want to have any of that on me in moto. Like I do it just for fun and for training. But yeah, it's a good time. I love it. It's always good to get a couple friends and just go ride. So can't complain about that.
Now, are you riding in the forest, or are you on dedicated tracks? Are you doing jumps, or like all flat ground stuff?
So I usually go to actual motocross tracks. So like I live in Northern California, so Sacramento's not far from me. There's a couple of good tracks in Sac and just around the area, so I'm there all the time. I do go trail riding sometimes. Recently, just because everything is burned, literally everything is burned.
Yeah.
All the parks have been closed, so I haven't gone trail riding in quite a while, but I'd like to.
Yeah, very cool. I've
Yeah.
very, very few minutes on a dirt bike in my experience so far, but it's definitely on the list to get back in, not get back into it, to get into it, and
Oh yeah.
they're really sliding around in the dirt because I think I definitely had some crashes that were stupid on the road race bike because I didn't know what I was doing in sliding conditions, and I think it probably would have helped me reduce some of the crashes. Like there was one instance in particular where I went off the track. I had a mechanical. It's going way too fast, and I decided to pull the front brake in the grass. And what happens? You immediately lose the front, and I
Yeah.
feel like an idiot because I know I wasn't supposed to do that, but because I don't have that background, you just pull the brake you normally pull. You know?
It happens to all of us, man. I mean, I've been guilty of that many times, many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, having a little bit of background in motocross and flat track or anything in dirt in general, pretty much for exactly what you're saying, just having a little bit of experience when the bike is sliding around when it's not necessarily planted. For me, it helps a lot, especially on the Honda where we had very, very limited electronics. You asked Jake Gagne, Cam Peterson, any of the high level American road racer dudes that rode the Hondas the last few years, and they'll all say the same thing where it's a buck and bronco all the
Yeah.
time. So having that experience on having the bike, always kind of be out of shape, always moving around helps me a lot. And that's primarily why I train in motocross all the time, just because it's fun and because I use it all the time. I use
Yeah.
that knowledge and that kind of mentality of, okay, like, yeah, the bike can be sideways in a wheelie. That's fine. The biggest thing is you got to make sure it lands straight, and then you're good to go.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. Motocross is, I would consider it a much higher risk sport than road racing, just because the immediate stops, you stop right in the ground, as where
Yeah.
road racing you slide. But we make the most out of what we got.
Yeah. You stick instead of slide usually in the dirt. Um,
Yep, it hurts.
Yeah, I do the next best thing for me. It's mountain biking because
Oh
that way you're still on in the dirt, but you're not using an engine. So I'm not getting the
yeah,
throttle control, but you're still in the brakes, and you know,
feeling the
um,
bike and everything.
yeah, and you're dragging shoulders around the trees instead. You're scraping your arms around the trees, and it makes me think.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why there aren't hand guards on mountain bikes because I smashed a couple fingers pretty hard. Hitting trees,
Oh yeah.
bar. That's not fun.
No, not at all. Yeah, I used to be way into mountain biking, and actually, exactly what you're saying. I used to go on like all these night rides and stuff, and they were a great time. One time, I was in this train of like 4 or 5 people, and I was in the very back, and I just remember watching this guy cut a corner too sharp, clip his shoulder, dislocate his shoulder, and we were out in the middle of nowhere. And so he's trying to ride back, and his arms all like flopping around. And after that, I was like, yeah, I don't know, if this is a good idea right now.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but
Sometimes
yeah,
I think. Sorry. Sometimes I think the mountain biking is more dangerous than road racing because in road racing you have a whole field to crash in, and the mountain bike racing you're clipping trees every other 20 feet.
yeah, yeah. The risk level in both can get up there at times, but I think if you're doing anything that's going to be exhilarating, anything in general, like walking across the street, you're going to have some risk factors. So might
For
as well have a
sure.
good time doing it.
Yeah, I always wear a full face every time I mountain bike. I'm like the only guy out there, and I'm doing this a racing series in Michigan. It's the whole state of
Mhm.
Michigan. They didn't do it this year because of COVID, but did it last year and the year before. And I'm the only guy out there with a full face. It's like I've hit my head too many times. I don't want to hit my face on a tree. It's not fun.
No way, dude. Yeah, I respect that. That would full faces and mountain biking and just cycling in general, they get hot and they get really heavy. At
Oh
least
yeah.
that's what I thought. But yeah, respect to you. I mean, that would be hard.
Well, I've been doing this hot yoga for the last couple of years as well. So it's 100 and whatever degrees in there. It aggravates me for being in a full face. This way, in the full face, I'm not really super hot. It is heavy. Your neck gets sore from it, but I think I'm strengthening for myself for when I get back to road racing and just keeping the neck strong.
Oh yeah, there you
So,
go.
tell me about some of your better sponsors. If you want to give some sponsor shout outs to some people or some companies.
Yeah, I think the biggest one right now would be Arai helmets and Pure Gun leathers, just for safety. You know, Arai is always. I've always been an Arai guy. I've tried a couple other brands, and I've always come back to Arai just because I like the fit. For me, it fits really well, and my contact there, Jeff Wheel, has always been a good friend of mine. So we have a lot of stories going way back. Some good, some bad, but yeah, he's a good buddy of mine, and we've always been pretty tight. So that's a really nice connection. And then Pure Gun leathers. Started working with them in France when I raced over there for Honda, and they've kind of followed me back over here to the States. We've tried to make it work in the States, and it's kind of been a battle. I mean, you've seen some other riders like Sean Dillon Kelly, Valentine DeVries, you know, they're riding Pure Gun as well. We're working on growing that, but they've been a huge part of my program for a long time, so shout out to them. A couple people I'm bringing on right now, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say, but there are some big things in the works, and we're trying to make sure I get it done before the new year. So
Very good. That's exciting. I have some ideas, but I won't say it either. Very good. So yeah, it's I have a simulator at my house. Is there anything you do for virtual training that you use for learning tracks or anything like that? Or is there anything that you can use for learning a motorcycle virtually?
As far as the motorcycle stuff is concerned, it's pretty difficult. I've had this conversation with quite a few like game developers and stuff from San Francisco, trying to get exactly what you're talking about. As far as, you know, we have car sims that are tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you want a nice one.
Yeah.
And they are literally like the spitting image of an open wheel car. Like you hop in and you are in the car. It's awesome. And they don't have anything like that for motorcycles, just because I think there are way too many variables, like you were saying earlier, as far as, you know, rider input, trying to get everything sorted out. That would be a big ask for anybody. But for me personally, learning tracks, YouTube, I mean, down and dirty, a really good way to learn a track is YouTube. I mean, you're not always going to find a lot of necessarily high quality or like good footage to really study, but you can get a general idea of what's going to go down. And then just the old MotoGP games, even the new ones. I used to play like MotoGP 08 all day, and I would just like do endurance races at a certain track that I was going to ride, and that would help me a lot just to get, again, a general layout of the land. But a couple different ways, those are just two of mine.
Sure. Yeah, I got into it one time with a racer I was sort of a rival against. I would always put a GoPro on my bike and post them up to YouTube, and this other guy was super secretive about all his videos. Like, man, you can be behind me all day long and not be able to do the same thing. So I'm going to post a video. And if you can do the same thing, then by all means, there it is. But you're not going to learn everything from a YouTube video, but it definitely helps. You can get your braking points. You can get kind of gear selection. You can get, you know, your apex, your throttle, your exits. You can get all of that. It definitely helps, but it's not everything.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, there's a lot you can learn. Unless you're going to a MotoGP track or a World Championship track, that's where you can find good onboards and stuff like that. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying, where you can get a general idea of like shift points and braking markers, throttle application, stuff like that. But for some of the more, especially American tracks, unfortunately, it's always a bit harder to find good quality video that you can really study off of. But, you know, you make the most out of what you got and go from there.
Yeah, and I've learned of a program for the computer called iRacing. You maybe have heard of it. Oh, yeah. And they have, I think, way more tracks than most video games do. They have like all the local tracks that you can do, and you can learn like the local Gretton track or Gingerman or Mid-Ohio that's not going to be on Gran Turismo or MotoGP. So there's other ways of getting those more elusive tracks to ride as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. And you ever do, well, I mean, you're in Northern California. You ever do any ice racing in the wintertime?
That's one thing I've never tapped into. I always thought it was pretty cool. I've always been kind of nervous to try.
Yeah.
I'd love to try it out at some point. I mean, I see PJ doing it all the time. PJ Jacobson doing it all the time. But yeah, I've never had the opportunity. I've never really asked for the opportunity, but I think it would be cool.
Yeah, I think you just got to have the right gear. There's no such thing as bad weather, just poor clothing choices.
I like that. That's a good term. That's a
I've been
good one.
using that one lately. I like it. But yeah, I got nothing else on the schedule for today. I just finished watching the Formula One F2 race from Bahrain, trying to follow up with that. Trying to stay up with the Formula One, Formula Two series. Are there any series that you follow other than motorcycles?
Ooh, outside of motorcycles, I'm a huge fan of supercross, motocross, all that stuff. Watch that religiously. Outside of bikes, I follow the Spec Miata series. It's not always televised, but I usually go to the racetrack and just help out if I can and watch because I think it's cool. I always like watching more of the lesser known series, if that makes sense. So like I'll go to Lemons, I'll go to, well, IMSA is not at all lesser known, but I'll go to
Yeah.
IMSA when I can and SCCA stuff. So I enjoy being around just the racing paddock in general, whether it's 2 or 4 wheels. Supermoto, again, that's 2 wheels, but I always enjoy watching that stuff. So yeah, it's a good time just being at the track, and if you can ride or drive, awesome. If you can't, just learn what you can. Good
Yeah,
times.
I'm just obsessed. I'm such a fan myself. I just love it. I
Oh
grew
yeah.
up playing soccer and hockey and tennis and flag football and swimming and all that. But it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed soccer a lot and hockey a lot. But it was never like enough. Once I got into racing, everything else kind of fell away, and it was unimportant to me.
Mhm.
Did you grow up doing anything different than racing, or is it all racing for you and your family?
I had this period of like a year or two where I stopped, like anything motorsports related at all. I stopped. I didn't do it, and I tried. I think that was like I don't know, sixth or eighth grade, something like that. And I tried baseball, I tried soccer, tried football, all this stuff, and I realized I sucked at pretty much everything. So I ended up going back to motorcycles, and now here we are.
Okay. So you found your
Yeah.
calling.
I guess so. I mean, I love sports in general. I'm not like a diehard fan for any specific sport or any specific team, but I do like to at least know a little bit about everything if I can. I'm a huge fan of soccer and football, so I always go out and play that with friends and stuff. But I've never really pursued anything as a career outside of firefighting and motorcycle racing.
And so this is one of my key questions I always ask everybody. Would you consider yourself a privateer or a factory at this point?
Oh man, oh Lord, definitely the last few years have been more privateer. Um, I don't know what's going to happen in 2021. That's what I'm still working on. But the last 2 years, it's definitely been, my family and I and our supporters making it happen, which has been good. And I've learned a lot. But that was definitely living the privateer life. When I was racing over in Europe, started off as a privateer life. And then the last 3 years or so were, I don't want to say factory, but it was a team. It was a professional team, and we didn't really have any control over what happened. We just kind of went with the flow and rode the bike, which had pros and cons. Everything is going to be good and bad in some retrospect, but yeah, learned a lot. And next year we'll see. We'll see what happens. I would like to be more towards the business end of side, the business end of racing, as far as getting more in with the factory.
Yeah.
But we'll see, and time will tell.
Yeah. And, you're providing an entertainment value. You're providing exposure for these sponsors. So there's no reason you shouldn't be paid for the work that you're doing.
I like that. It's so hard to be a professional paid motorcycle rider anywhere in the world, especially in the US at this time. It's just the racing industry has changed. And granted, things are starting to look up, things are starting to look better, which is good news for everybody. But right now, it's more just trying to make sure you're not shooting, at least for me, like I've always had a backup plan as far as I have a job, I go to school. I've never like devoted 100% of everything in my life towards racing just because I thought that was a bad idea. So I try my best to work with what I got, and I'm thankful for what we have, and we kind of we take what we can and go from there.
Yeah, so I mean that's all you can do. You can if you put all your eggs in one basket and then the basket falls, then what happens, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So yeah, it's always the struggle of how do you provide your best performance here, but with not all your energy. You know, it's this balancing game.
That's what it's all about. Just trying to find that balance and something we're always chasing.
Yeah. Do you miss your time over at like BSB or CEV? Would you rather be overseas?
I miss those years a lot, especially back in BSB. I mean, that paddock was just something else, and I learned a lot there. Really learned how to ride a bike, I guess differently. I mean, I had been that kind of ties into what I was saying earlier, where I was like honed. I was trained to ride one way, which is not
Yes.
a bad thing. It's not a bad way. It just was different than what I had to do when I was over there, and a lot of that was for tires and the bikes I was riding. And when I got over to Europe, the bikes were different, the tires were different. So I kind of had to like relearn how to ride a motorcycle, which took me about a year. I mean, I went over to Europe thinking I'd be the shit. You know, I was winning stuff here, and then I got over to BSB, especially CEV, and sucked. You know,
Yeah.
first race I had in CEV, I barely qualified. I think I qualified by like 2/10 of a second, and I was 31st.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was
It's
definitely a wake
another
up call.
level.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's not only another level; it's just a level of support that they have for the racers over there. There is no way I would ever ask or imagine an American young rider to go against a Spanish young rider and beat them. Like it's not, unless you just have absolute insane levels of natural talent, it's not going to happen just because it's not that the skill isn't there, but the infrastructure to help riders grow and progress that they have in Europe is night and day
Yeah.
compared to America. And again, it's getting better. Things over here are getting better. We are getting more and more riders that are up and coming, which is good to see. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge step for me and just learned how to ride really different and kind of came back a different person. But, I'm thankful. And, I kind of like to say that I show up to the track not to make friends, but to win races.
Sure.
And it was more the other way around when I first went over there. Uh, but that's okay. We all learn and we all make it work however we can.
Yeah, I think our cultures are just so different. It seems like to me, everybody in the US gets a car when they're 16 and they just skip the whole scooter phase, motorcycle phase. They just get a car. In Europe
Yep.
or Spain, they start with mopeds, they start with scooters, they get motorcycles, 250s, and then they get a
Yep.
motorcycle maybe, or and then they might get a car if they need one. It's just
Hmm.
culture. We're NASCAR sports cars, and they're motorcycle gung ho. It's just different.
Yeah, just very, like you were saying, very different. Not bad. I don't think either of them have their, like, oh, this is the right way and this is the wrong way. It's just different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I bought a motorcycle before I owned a car, so I'm in the European mindset still. But at the moment, I don't have a motorcycle. I only have been riding on the track since 2011. I haven't really rode on the street since I got arrested for speeding.
Oh shit. Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah, that's how. I mean, I had my cycle endorsement. I didn't lose my license. I just decided it's better for me if I ride on the racetrack on my motorcycle than the street because it wasn't so much fun going 40 miles an hour and stopping, 40 miles an hour and stopping. Um, when I get a street bike again, I'd probably get a 400 because there's no reason you need a 600 or 1000 on the street when the 400 goes over 110 miles an hour,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. No, everything. It honestly scares me when you see people go into their local dealer and like, oh, I'm gonna get this R1 first bike ever. Like, oh,
Yeah.
great idea. Let's see how that works out. But yeah, there's only so much you can do really, and everybody has the right to their own opinion, and that's all good. Um, but yeah, definitely I try to persuade people to not, like you were saying, 400 is fine for 90% of people, and that's
Yeah.
all you're ever going to really need on the street. So,
Now, are you a
another.
are you a street rider? Do you have a street bike, or are you track only?
So I don't have a dedicated street bike. I have my CBR 600 that I kind of switch between, street and track. I don't necessarily enjoy riding on the street, as hard as that is to say. It just scares me, freaks me out.
Yeah.
I've done a couple street rides, but every time I go with a group of friends, it's always like, oh, it turns into this like race. And for me, that is like, I came here to go like 45 and just chill.
Yeah.
And those guys came there to do 120 and freaking shred, which is good for them, but it's not my, I've never really been into that.
And then now you're a racer, and they're like, oh, this racer's riding with us. I have to beat him. So now everybody's going to
Yeah.
show you up, right? And then that's not what you're trying to do it, first of all.
Oh yeah, it's always kind of this never-ending battle, and that's okay. I understand everybody has their own opinion, their own perspective on I don't want to say what's right and what's wrong, but just what they're comfortable with. And for me, I just get scared, straight up. I always tell people that, like, hey, we can go on a street ride, but like, I'm not, I'm not there to shred. I'm just there to chill and like just take it
Sure.
easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a lot of people that ride the street, and it's always a good time for them, and that's awesome. But yeah, more power to them.
Yeah. I had a whole bunch of friends for a while who would always go down to Tennessee, the Deals Gap, it's called. It's 312 turns within 11 miles in the mountains type of thing. And we went down there with a group of 20 guys, all in suits and sport bikes. It was a blast. But even that, I mean, it's fun to experience it and to ride through it, but I don't want to race something like that. I don't want to. That's like Isle of Man stuff. I don't want anything to do with flying off a guardrail off the side of a mountain. No, thank you.
Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it'll get you. It'll get you in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So just trying to think. Motorsports talk. Um, so we were talking about suits before. I got one suit left right now. I have a Alpine Stars Atom suit. My first suit was it was another Alpine Stars. It was about $1,000. It was an entry level suit, but the one they cut off of me, so I didn't get to keep that one. Unfortunately, I ended up hitting a guardrail at about 130 miles an hour in 2015, and broke a whole bunch of bones, concussion, dislocated shoulder, collapsed lung, all that stuff. But
wow.
most of the time, when you crash, you don't hit anything. A dozen times, and only one time I hit something, and it only takes one time though to have that bad crash. Have you had any bad ones like that?
Oh, I've only ever had one suit cut off, and that was last year. Man, I have never had that bad of a crash, thankfully. I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I have had a few that stand out as worse than others. And definitely one of them was that crash in Portimao I was telling you about when I high sided at like 150. That sucked.
And that's a strange one because you said you hit a false neutral between like fourth and fifth.
Yeah. It was one of those things where we were even looking at the data and you could see where I went to grab the shift and the gear position sensor said it went into first, but in reality, it just kind of like, and just coasted in neutral. Yeah. And then it finally re-engaged in the gear and just that aggressive, clunk was enough to get the rear to step out and just eject me off the seat.
And there's no time to save something like that when that happens.
No. And it was one of those moments where like in my head, I think about it all the time and everything was in slow-mo. But when you're looking at on TV footage, you just see it go, and then you're just off.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the crash I had last year with my elbow. I don't know if you can see that pretty nice scar there. That was a good one. That was the first med flight I've ever had. That was the first time I ever got airlifted off the track. And it was a good one for a couple of different reasons. The biggest thing was I just got greedy and I was in a qualifying session in second place and my pit board said, oh, you're like 0.2 down off a pole. And in my head, I was like, well, 0.2, I can do that, no problem. So I went around. Do you know Thunderhill Raceway in Northern California?
I know of it, yeah. It's got that big dip, kind of like a corkscrew in it.
Yep. So I was at that track and I was trying to make up some time on the exit of a corner where I really shouldn't have been. And long story short, the rear end started coming around and I just kept in it for whatever reason. And the bike pretty much spun 180 degrees backwards. And I kind of like fell off the back and then just watched the bike hook and then land on me. And that just exploded my left arm. And that was a bad deal. That took a long time, 3 surgeries, like 8-month recovery time. So that
Oh,
was a
wow.
bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, I have my suit that's cut open, hanging on a wall. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good time.
Yeah. I ended up
Oh yeah.
throwing mine out. I didn't want to look at it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it. I feel it.
But yeah, man, it's the trials and tribulations of racing, the highs and the lows. Sometimes you feel so elated when you win that, when you get that pole position by just a thousandth of a second, or you beat that guy. But there, the bad sides of it also are there too. But it makes it a whole package. You know, you can't have the bad without the good, and the good without the bad. So it all makes it seem worth it in the end.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's something I say all the time, just in life. But if you're going to be good at anything, it's never going to be easy. You know, you're never. I relate it to like chess. Like the best chess players in the world, they always lose a game. Like you're
Yeah.
always. There's always
Yeah.
going to be something that happens. And for motorcycle racers, it's a crash, or it's an injury, or it's lack of funding, or there's always something in the way. But all we can really do is try our best, and like you said, enjoy the highs and learn from the lows, and go from there.
Yeah, and there's always going to be somebody faster than you. Doesn't matter who you are. There's always going to be someone who's just a little bit faster than you, and that's
Oh
frustrating.
yeah.
But we can just try to get better and just do the best we can. Yeah. So,
Yeah, learn what you can and go from there.
yeah. We're coming up to our 1 hour mark today, so let's cap it here. Are there any other shout outs you want to give before we cap this?
Shoot. I guess the biggest one that I haven't really done before, but I should start doing is just my local fire department, Napa County Fire. They let me. I'm just volunteer with them. I'm a volunteer firefighter for Napa County Fire, but recently it's been more full time just because all the fires we've had. So shout out to them for letting me do what I love and still work for them. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks
Sorry
guys
for
for letting us see this talented guy race a motorcycle.
Well, thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate it. And if you ever need anything, let me know.
Very good. Well, I'll get this edited and posted pretty shortly here, and make sure you tag and share this, and everybody can see it. And have a great day, Jayson. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, sir. You too. We'll see you later.
All right, bye bye.